think in this new missionary context, which Francis is constantly referring to, the role of a small, flexible, mobile, dynamic lay community is absolutely key, because we're not encumbered by the need to maintain a particular kind of institutional relationship, or indeed any institution at all. We can go where we're called, where God is calling us. So first of all, to have a dynamic lay community in the world, in the spaces where the institutional church simply can't reach, that's fundamental. Secondly, that it's an Ignatian community. That means that it's a discerning community, that it's asking, where does God want us to be? What is the needs of the world right now that we are called to address? So I think it's that combination of being genuinely discerning, genuinely apostolic, genuinely lay, genuinely missionary is exactly what we need now in the church, in this difficult transition that we're in between one model of church and another. And what we're being called to is what the Second Vatican Council was calling on the church to embrace. But I think only now with Pope Francis are we really realizing that we have to do this. And I think an Ignatian lay community like CLC is, it's a gift. It's a gift to the world, it's a gift to the church that can show us the way, it can show us how to do this. Pope Francis, in his many documents and many things he has said, has constantly been saying that the church needs to realize that we're in a new place, that we need a new mentality, a new attitude, to understand that we are now a missionary church in a missionary context. We are a church that goes out. And for that, we have to get away from the idea that we need to try and defend particular spaces in culture and in law. Of course, we must witness to the truth, but our efforts need to be not on trying to maintain spaces which we're going to lose, but rather on building a new culture from below, from the people of God. And this is the change in mindset that we need now in the church. That's what he's calling for. It's what the Latin American church in the great meeting in 2007 in Aparecida called a missionary and pastoral conversion, which starts with the encounter with Jesus Christ. We have to be able to facilitate that encounter, because that encounter is the element, the basic founding element of our faith, and creates of us missionary disciples who are then capable of evangelizing. Unless we have that, in the future the church will be gradually disappear, because we'll not be able to survive in the kind of modernity that we have now. On the other hand, we need to see this not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity, as a kairos, an opportunity where God is calling us now to go to the essential, and the essential is the encounter with Jesus Christ. When we created Catholic Voices in 2010, it was a very different context. We had a media that was very, very against the papacy, very against the church. Now, to some extent that hasn't changed, but what has changed is Pope Francis. And in many ways, he has been doing in his communication what we were calling for, which was essentially to include mercy as the primary message that we want to communicate. In other words, that Catholicism is not an idea, it's not a moral code, it's not a philosophy, it is above all a relationship. It's a relationship with God, and it's a relationship not just with any God, but with a God of mercy and of love. And that in the encounter with that God of mercy and love, we are transformed in every way, including ethically and morally. So how can you communicate the truth while communicating the essential part of that truth, which is that the truth is a person and that the truth is a relationship? That's the task. It's not easy, because we are tempted all the time into an intellectual, ethical defense of what we believe to be true. And we all want to do that. We all want to explain why we're right. We all want to explain why Catholicism is true, why it's clever, why it has the answers, why the attacks on Catholicism are wrong. I totally understand that. I'm like that myself. but we have to learn that when we communicate the truth, we have to communicate the beauty and the mercy of God at the same time. Otherwise, we're not evangelizing. We mustn't be tempted into a kind of response by the attacks. As Pope Francis says, the temptation, we must make sure that we don't end up communicating truth without mercy, or indeed mercy without truth. Truth and mercy together, that's the answer. Francis shows us the way.